The research station on the edge of the planet's thick forest was small, but it was where Jack spent most of his time, a young human. Jack had been stationed here as part of a research team, studying the planet's wildlife. He had come from Earth, far away from the dangers of this unknown world. But here he found a different kind of danger, one that was not always easy to see. The other researchers on the station were often afraid of the local wildlife, and they whispered about the aliens that roamed the forests. The rumors about these creatures had spread for years, and most of the people who worked here believed they were deadly. But Jack was different. He wasn't afraid of stories. He didn't believe that everything out there was out to hurt him. One evening, Jack decided to go for a walk in the forest. The sun was setting, and the cool breeze made the tall trees sway gently. It was a peaceful time of day, and Jack liked to be alone, away from the noise of the station. He had heard that the forest was home to many strange creatures, but he had never been afraid. He had always thought that if you respected nature, nature would respect you. As he walked deeper into the forest, he heard something. It wasn't the usual sounds of birds or wind, it was something else. There was a soft rustling sound from a nearby bush. Jack stopped and listened carefully. His heart began to race. He wasn't sure what it was, but he knew it wasn't an animal. He slowly moved closer to the sound, his curiosity taking over. As he peeked around the large tree trunk in front of him, he saw her. A woman. She was tall, with long, silver hair that seemed to glow in the dim light of the setting sun. Her skin was a pale blue, almost translucent, and her eyes were large, dark, and deep, like they could see right through him. She wore strange, shiny armor that covered her chest and arms, but it didn't hide the grace in her movements. She didn't look like anyone Jack had ever seen. She didn't even look human. For a moment, neither of them moved. Jack's breath caught in his throat. He had heard stories about her kind. The locals called them the Scifi, and they were said to be fierce, dangerous creatures. Most of the people on the station were terrified of them, and Jack had always thought of them as nothing more than myths. But here she was, standing in front of him, looking just as real as anything else. The woman's eyes studied Jack for a long moment, and he could feel the weight of her gaze. He had read about how the Scifi were feared across the galaxy, known for their strength and their sharp, deadly skills. But Jack didn't see any danger in her eyes, only curiosity. She didn't seem angry or hostile. In fact, she seemed as surprised to see him as he was to see her. Finally, Jack found his voice. Who are you?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. The woman tilted her head slightly. Studying him, she spoke softly, her voice like a melody Jack had never heard before. "I am Zira," she said. Her voice had an unfamiliar sound to it, but the words were clear. Jack didn't know what to say next. He had heard stories about the Scifi, but he had never expected to meet one face to face. The other researchers always talked about how dangerous they were, but now that he was standing here, staring into the eyes of one, he wasn't afraid. She didn't seem dangerous. She seemed lonely. "Are you lost?" Jack asked, taking a step forward. His curiosity was stronger than the fear he had been warned about. Zira's eyes softened, and for a brief moment, Jack saw something else behind her fierce expression, something that looked like sadness. "I am stranded," she said. "I have been here for a long time." Jack could feel the weight of her words. "How long?" he asked, his voice quiet. She looked away for a moment, as if remembering something painful. "Long enough," she replied. Jack felt a strange pull toward her. He wasn't sure why, but he wanted to help her. He had never been one to ignore a call for help, even if it came from someone no one else would trust. "Maybe I can help," he said, not knowing where the words came from. Zira's gaze shifted back to him, and there was something almost surprised in her eyes. "Why would you help me?" she asked, her voice a little sharper now. Jack didn't hesitate. "Because you don't look dangerous," he said simply. "You look like you need help." For a moment, Zira didn't say anything. She just stared at him, as if trying to understand him. Then, without a word, she turned and started to walk away. Deeper into the forest, Jack watched her go, unsure of what to do next. but something inside him told him to follow. Maybe it was his need to prove something, or maybe it was just a deep sense of compassion. Whatever it was, he couldn't just stand there. He followed her. Jack followed Zira through the dense forest, the shadows of the trees growing longer as the sun dipped below the horizon. The air was cool, and every so often, he could hear the rustle of leaves as a distant creature scurried away. The forest was alive, but it was quiet, almost like it was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Jack couldn't help but feel like this was a moment in time that he wouldn't forget. Zira moved effortlessly through the trees, her long, silver hair catching the fading light. She seemed at home in the forest, like it was her natural place. While Jack struggled to keep up, he wasn't used to the alien world's uneven ground, and his boots made loud crunching sounds against the underbrush. But Zira's steps were almost silent. After a few minutes, they came to a clearing. Zira stopped in the center and turned to face Jack. He was surprised to see a small, simple structure made from branches and leaves, blending so well with the environment that he almost missed it. "This is where I stay," Zira said, her voice soft. She didn't look at him directly as she spoke, but Jack could sense the calmness in her tone. It was the first time she had shared anything personal with him. Jack looked around. The structure wasn't much, just a simple shelter that seemed to be built out of natural materials. It wasn't large, but it was sturdy. It made him realize how resourceful Zira must be to survive on this strange planet alone. "How long have you been here?" Jack asked, his curiosity getting the best of him. "A long time," Zira replied. Her gaze seemed distant, as though she was looking at something far away in her memory. "Long enough to learn the ways of the planet, long enough to survive." Jack nodded but didn't press further. There was something in her voice that told him it was a painful subject. Instead, he asked, "Why don't you leave? Surely, there are others out there who could help you." Zira's eyes flickered to him for a moment, and Jack could feel the weight of her stare. It was intense, yet somehow soft. "There are no others like me," she said, her voice tinged with a hint of sadness. "My kind, we are not welcomed by the others." Jack didn't fully understand. "But why? Why would anyone be afraid of you? You're not dangerous." He felt his heart beat a little faster as he spoke the words. He had seen no reason to fear her. Zira smiled faintly, the curve of her lips almost imperceptible. "You're the first one who said that." Jack felt his cheeks warm a little. He hadn't meant to make it sound so important, but somehow, he knew it was. The way Zira looked at him, it was as if his words had reached something deep within her, something she had kept hidden for a long time. "I just don't understand," Jack continued, stepping a little closer. "You've been here for so long. Why hasn't anyone tried to help you? Don't they see that you're just like them?" Zira's gaze softened. "I'm not like them," she said quietly. "My people are feared. We are seen as threats. Many have tried to destroy us." Jack felt his stomach tighten at her words. He couldn't imagine what she had gone through, being treated as a danger because of her appearance. He wanted to say something, anything to make her feel better, but he didn't know how. Instead, he took another step forward. "I'm sorry," he said, unsure of what else to add. Zira's eyes met his, and for a moment, there was silence. Then, she spoke again, this time in a voice that was almost a whisper. "It's not your fault, human. It's the way the universe works." Jack felt a strange connection growing between them, a bond that neither of them had asked for, but that seemed to be forming just the same. He didn't fully understand her situation, but something inside him told him that he could help. If only she would let him. "Can I stay?" Jack asked after a few moments of quiet reflection. "Not just tonight. I mean, for a while. I'll help you. If you need help, I'll help." Zira looked at him with a mix of curiosity and caution. "Why would you want to help me?" she asked, her tone almost like a challenge. Jack took a deep breath, trying to think of the right words. "Because I believe you deserve it," he said simply. "I believe you're not a monster. I believe you're someone who deserves to be seen, just like everyone else." Zira didn't answer at first. She simply looked at him, studying him. With those deep, dark eyes, Jack could feel her weighing his words, but he didn't look away. He held her gaze, silently willing her to understand. Finally, Zira nodded. It was a small gesture, but it felt like a huge step forward. You are the first to ever say that, she whispered. Jack smiled, though he could feel a twinge of sadness in the air. Well, someone has to. The quiet moments stretched on as they stood together in the clearing, the evening's cool air settling around them. Jack knew there was still so much he didn't understand, but one thing was clear to him. He wasn't going to turn away from Zira. He couldn't. Not when he saw the kindness beneath the layers of fear and strength that surrounded her. For the first time in a long while, Zira seemed to let her guard down, even if just a little. And for Jack, it felt like a beginning. The next few days passed quietly, with Jack returning to the small shelter in the forest where Zira stayed. He didn't really know why he kept coming back, but something about the time they spent together felt important. Jack had always been the kind of person who tried to help others, but this was different. He had never felt so drawn to someone who was so misunderstood. Zira was more than what the rumors made her out to be, and he wanted to prove that to her. Xira, for her part, was not used to someone showing this much kindness. Her people were known for their strength, their ability to protect themselves, and the fear they inspired in others. She had always been an outsider, never quite fitting in with the others. For years, she had lived alone, hiding from those who saw her as a threat. But now, Jack was different. He didn't seem afraid of her. It was strange, but it made her feel something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. One afternoon, as Jack arrived at the shelter, he found Zira sitting on a large stone, staring out into the forest. The sunlight filtered through the trees, casting a soft glow on her face. She looked peaceful, but there was still something distant in her eyes. Jack approached slowly, not wanting to disturb her, but not wanting to leave without talking. You look like you're lost in thought, he said, his voice light. Zira didn't look at him right away. She took a deep breath, as if gathering her thoughts, before finally turning her gaze to him. I was thinking, she said, her voice soft and calm, about the past, about what brought me here. Jack sat down beside her, careful not to make her feel crowded. You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, he said, his voice gentle. But I'm here if you need to. Zira hesitated, her hands resting on her lap. She hadn't spoken much about herself to Jack, but something about his presence made her feel safe. She trusted him in a way she hadn't trusted anyone in years. The truth is, she began, her voice low. I came to this planet after my ship was damaged in an attack. I was the only one left alive. The others, they didn't make it. Her voice faltered for a moment, and Jack could hear the pain in her words. He wanted to reach out, but he stayed still, letting her speak. After that, Zira continued. I tried to get back to my people, but it was impossible. The galaxy is a dangerous place, and I was seen as a threat. No one wanted to help me. Her eyes darkened, and for the first time, Jack saw a hint of the pain she had been hiding. I've been alone for so long. Jack could feel the weight of her words, and a deep sadness settled in his chest. He had no idea what it would be like to lose everyone, to be left in a strange place with no hope of returning home. But Zira's strength, the way she carried herself, made him admire her even more. She wasn't just surviving, she was still standing. I'm sorry, Jack said, his voice sincere. No one should ever feel like that, but I want you to know that you're not alone anymore. I'm here. Zira turned her head to look at him, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. You really mean that? She asked, her voice almost a whisper. Jack nodded. Yeah, I do. They sat there in silence for a while, just the two of them, watching the sun slowly setting behind the trees. It was a peaceful moment, one that felt safe, for once. Neither of them felt the weight of their past pressing down on them. They just existed in the moment, sharing an unspoken understanding. After some time, Jack spoke again, breaking the silence. Zira, I don't know what you've been through, but I know that it must have been hard. I can't change the past, but I can be here for you now, and I don't care what anyone else says. I think you're beautiful. The words slipped out before he could stop them, and he immediately regretted them. He had meant to say something different, something that didn't sound so out of place, but now it was out there. Zira blinked in surprise. She wasn't used to being called beautiful, especially by someone who didn't fear her. Most people only saw her strength, her fierce appearance. She had always been the powerful alien, never the object of someone's affection. She looked at him, her dark eyes studying his face. "Why do you think that?" she asked, her voice quieter than before. Jack shifted a little, not sure how to answer, but knowing he needed to be honest. "Because I see more than just the armor, the stories, the fear. I see you, Zira, and you're more than what people say." Zira looked away, her eyes searching the ground for a moment. The idea that someone could see beyond her race, beyond her appearance, was new. It was strange, but it felt good. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel like she had to hide. "I've never been called beautiful before," Zira said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Not like that. People always fear me, or they think I'm a weapon." Jack smiled, his heart lifting. "Maybe they're just afraid to see the real you. But I'm not." Zira didn't say anything for a while, but her expression softened. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe that maybe Jack saw something in her that was worth seeing. And in that moment, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. The next few days felt different for Jack. Every time he saw Zira, there was something more between them, a silent understanding, a connection that neither of them had expected. He had always been drawn to people who needed help, but Zira was different. She didn't ask for help. She didn't want pity. She was strong, proud, and carried the weight of her past without complaint. Still, Jack couldn't ignore the small moments when he saw the loneliness in her eyes, the quiet moments when she would sit by the shelter and stare into the trees, as though she was waiting for something that would never come. He wanted to be the one to fill that silence, to show her that she wasn't as alone as she thought. But it wasn't just about helping her. Jack had grown to care about Zira in a way he hadn't expected. Her strength was inspiring, yes, but it was her heart that had caught his attention. There was a softness to her that few people ever saw, and Jack felt lucky that he was one of the few who had. One evening, after a long day of gathering supplies from the surrounding forest, Jack and Zira sat outside the shelter, the soft glow of the setting sun casting long shadows over the ground. The air was cooler now, and the sky above them was streaked with shades of orange and purple. "Do you ever miss it?" Jack asked quietly, breaking the comfortable silence. "Your home, your people?" Zira paused, her gaze turning to the horizon. "Every day," she said softly, "I miss the stars of my homeworld, the sound of the winds, the laughter of my people. But those things are gone now. I am the last of my kind." She didn't sound sad, but Jack could hear the weight in her words. It was a burden she carried every day, and he knew it wasn't something she could easily let go of. Jack nodded, his heart heavy. "I'm sorry," he said, the words feeling too small to express the sympathy he felt. Zira didn't respond right away. Instead, she sat quietly, her eyes lost in the sky. Jack wanted to reach out, to comfort her, but he wasn't sure how. All he could do was sit beside her and hope that his presence was enough. "I used to think that the fear was the worst part," Zira said after a long silence. "The fear that others have of me. But now, I realize that it's the loneliness that hurts the most. The feeling that I'm invisible, that I don't belong anywhere." Jack looked at her, his voice gentle. "You belong here, with me." She turned to him then, her dark eyes meeting his. For a moment, neither of them spoke, and the air between them seemed to crackle with something unspoken. Jack had never been good with words when it came to matters of the heart. He wasn't sure if he was saying the right thing, but he meant every word. Zira's lips twitched into a small, surprised smile. "You really believe that?" Jack nodded, his eyes steady on hers. "I do. I don't care what anyone else says. You're not a monster, Zira. You're more than that. You're someone who deserves to be seen." The words hung in the air between them, and for the first time in a long while, Zira felt something stir. Inside her, she had always seen herself as different, as something to be feared. But here was Jack, someone who saw her as more than just the stories others told about her. He saw her as a person, a woman, someone worthy of love and respect. She had never felt that before. She looked down at her hands, her fingers twitching slightly. She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that she wasn't just the product of fear and prejudice. But it was hard. She had spent so many years hiding, keeping herself locked away from others. But Jack was different. He was willing to see her for who she truly was. "Thank you," she whispered. "No one has ever said that to me before. No one has ever looked at me and seen someone worth knowing." Jack smiled, feeling something warm stir in his chest. "I see you, Zira. I see you." The conversation turned to lighter topics after that. They talked about their lives, their worlds, and the things that made them happy. It wasn't easy for Zira to open up, but with Jack, it felt right. She didn't have to hide or pretend to be something she wasn't. He accepted her, just as she was. Later that evening, as the stars began to appear in the sky, Jack and Zira stood together, gazing up at the constellations. It was one of those rare moments when everything seemed perfect, when the world felt still and quiet. Jack didn't know what the future held for them, but he knew one thing for certain. He didn't want to lose this feeling, this connection with Zira. As they stood there, side by side, Jack felt a deep sense of peace. He wasn't sure what had drawn him to Zira, but now he couldn't imagine being anywhere else. He had always believed in helping others, but this was different. This was about more than just helping. This was about understanding, about seeing someone for who they truly were and offering them the chance to be more than what others had made them out to be. For the first time in a long while, Jack felt like he had found something real, something worth fighting for. And as the night stretched on, with the stars shining brightly above them, Jack made a silent promise to himself. No matter what challenges lay ahead, he would stand by Zira. She wasn't alone anymore. The days were peaceful, and Jack grew more comfortable with Zira's company. They spent their time together in the forest, gathering food, sharing stories, and learning from each other. Jack's understanding of the planet deepened, and Zira found herself feeling more and more at ease in his presence. For the first time in a long while, she began to feel a sense of safety. Jack had proven himself to be different from the others, and she couldn't help but appreciate the quiet strength he offered. But things were about to change. One morning, as the sun began to rise, Jack was in the forest, collecting firewood for the day when he heard the sound of ships in the distance. The noise was faint at first, but it grew louder, echoing through the trees. His heart raced as he looked up. Squinting at the sky, he saw a group of ships coming down from the clouds, their sleek forms cutting through the sky. Jack's first thought was that they were just explorers or another research team coming to the planet. But the ships didn't look like any research vessels he had seen. They were military ships, large and intimidating. The sound of their engines sent a chill down Jack's spine. He rushed back to the shelter, his mind racing with questions. What did they want? Why were they here? As he reached the shelter, he saw Zira standing outside, her eyes fixed on the sky. She must have heard the ships too. "They're coming," Zira said, her voice low and steady, though Jack could see the tension in her posture. Jack felt a knot form in his stomach. "Who are they?" Zira looked at him, her expression serious. "They are soldiers from the galaxy's military forces. They are coming to take me." Jack's heart skipped a beat. "Take you?" he asked, his voice trembling. "Why?" Zira's eyes darkened. "Because of who I am. They are afraid of me, just like everyone else. They think I am a threat." Jack clenched his fists, anger rising in his chest. He couldn't believe it. After everything they had been through, after the connection they had shared, this was what she had to face. He wasn't going to let anyone take her. Not now. Not ever. "They can't do this," Jack said, his voice firm. "We can fight back." Zira shook her head slowly. "It's not that simple. They are too powerful. Too many. I've tried to hide for years, but they always find me. They won't stop until they have me." Jack couldn't believe what he was hearing. The idea that Zira had been living with this fear all this time hit him hard. He could see now how much she had endured, how much she had kept hidden from everyone, even him. The weight of it all was too much for her to bear alone. You don't have to face this alone, Jack said, his voice softer now, but full of determination. I won't let them take you. We'll fight together. Zira looked at him, her dark eyes searching his face. She seemed torn, unsure of what to do. You don't understand. They will come for you too. You'll be in danger just by being near me. It's not worth it, Jack. Jack took a step forward, placing a hand on her shoulder. I understand more than you think, and I'm not leaving. I've already chosen you. I won't let anyone take you from me. For a long moment, Zira said nothing. She simply stood there, her eyes filled with uncertainty. Jack could feel the weight of her words, the fear of what might happen if they tried to stand up against the soldiers. But he didn't care. He couldn't turn away from her now, not after everything they had shared. He believed in her strength, and he believed in their bond. The ships grew louder as they neared, and Jack could see them now, large metallic ships descending through the clouds. The sunlight reflected off their surfaces, casting sharp, cold shadows. On the ground, he knew that the soldiers weren't here to ask questions. They were here to capture Zira, to take her away and lock her up, like a dangerous animal. Jack looked at Zira, his resolve hardening. We need to leave. Now, Zira's eyes softened, but she nodded. She didn't argue, didn't try to push him away. She seemed to know, deep down, that this was their only chance. They couldn't stay here and hope the soldiers would leave. They had to act, and they had to act fast, together. They gathered what little they could carry and made their way deeper into the forest. Jack had no plan, no idea what they would do next. But he knew one thing for sure: he wasn't going to let Zira face this alone. He had made a promise, and he intended to keep it. As they moved through the trees, Jack could hear the ships land. In the distance, the sound of heavy boots hitting the ground, the sharp crackle of radios, and the muffled voices of soldiers filled the air. They were getting closer. Zira turned to him, her expression hardening. They won't stop, Jack. They'll track us down. They'll do whatever it takes to capture me. Jack took her hand, squeezing it gently. Then we'll do whatever it takes to stop them. They moved quickly now, deeper into the forest. Knowing that time was running out, Jack had never felt this kind of urgency before, but he couldn't ignore the fear in Zira's eyes. He wouldn't let them take her out while he still had the strength to fight. The chase had begun, and there was no turning back. The forest was dense, the trees towering above them like silent giants as Jack and Zira moved deeper into the wilderness. The sounds of the soldiers shouting, radios crackling, the thumping of boots grew louder with each step. Jack's heart pounded in his chest as he led the way through the thick underbrush. He wasn't sure where they were headed, but all he knew was that they couldn't stay in one place for too long. The soldiers were closing in fast. Zira was right behind him, her steady footsteps barely making a sound. Even though she was clearly stronger than him, Jack could feel the weight of her fear pressing down on both of them. He had never seen her like this before. She had always been confident, strong, even with the burden of her past. But now, there was a certain vulnerability in her eyes, a quiet panic that Jack had never witnessed. Jack, we can't keep running, Zira said, her voice low but urgent. They will catch us. It's only a matter of time. Jack stopped for a moment, turning to look at her. Her face was hard to read, but her voice betrayed the fear she was trying to hide. He could see how much she wanted to believe that they could escape, but there was doubt in her eyes, and maybe, just maybe, she was right. They couldn't keep running forever. They needed a plan. But Jack wasn't ready to give up. We'll find a way, he said, his voice firm. I'm not giving up on you, Zira. We can't let them capture you. Zira shook her head slowly, her eyes downcast. You don't understand, Jack. You're risking your life for me. You're a human. You can't fight against them. I've spent years hiding, running from people like them. They don't stop. They won't rest until I'm in their hands. Jack's heart ached at the raw honesty in her voice. She was right. In one sense, he wasn't a soldier, not like the ones hunting them. He was just a man who had come to care for someone who, for all her strength, had been broken by the world's cruelty. But he couldn't stand the thought of leaving her alone, of letting her face this danger without him. I don't care about the odds, Jack said, stepping closer to her. I care about you. I won't let them take you. We'll figure it out together. Zira looked at him, her gaze softening. For a brief moment, Jack saw the conflict in her eyes, the same battle she had fought for so long. Her mind was telling her to run, to push him away and save him from the danger she brought. But her heart was telling her something else. It was telling her that she wasn't alone anymore. I don't want to put you in danger, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Jack reached out, taking her hand in his. It felt like the simplest thing, but in that moment, it felt like everything. You don't have a choice anymore, he said, smiling softly. We're in this together. I'm not going to let them tear us apart. Zira didn't answer at first. She simply stood there, staring at him, as though searching for something, maybe for the truth in his words. After a long moment, she nodded, a small but genuine smile appearing on her face. All right, she said. Softly, together, they both stood there for a few moments, catching their breath, before Jack turned and began moving again. Zira followed closely behind, her steps steady. The forest stretched before them, an endless maze of trees and shadows. Jack had no idea where they were going, but he was determined to keep moving. He had to keep them safe. The soldiers were still out there, and they would not stop until they found them. Jack knew it was only a matter of time before the soldiers would close in on their location. They had no real place to hide, no plan except to stay one step ahead. But Jack had an idea. Zira, he said, as they continued through the forest. I think I know a place we can hide. It's a cave I found a few days ago, deep in the forest. It's small, but it's hidden. Zira's eyes widened with a hint of hope. A cave? Jack nodded. It's our best shot. If we can get there before they do, we might have a chance. Zira didn't say anything, but Jack could see the uncertainty in her eyes. She didn't want to believe that this was their last chance. She had spent so long running, so long hiding, that trusting someone, trusting Jack, was something new, something frightening. But he could feel her shifting, her trust in him growing with every step they took together. They moved faster. Now, Jack's heart racing as they neared the edge of the forest. The cave was close, but the sounds of the soldiers grew louder. Jack could hear the crackling of radios, the shouts of their voices. They were getting closer. He pushed forward, pulling Zira along with him. Finally, they reached the cave, a small, dark opening in the side of a hill. It was covered with thick vines, making it almost invisible from a distance. Jack had found it when he had been exploring the forest alone, and now it was their only hope. Zira ducked inside first, Jack following closely behind. They crouched down, staying as quiet as possible. Jack's heart was pounding in his chest as he listened to the sounds of the soldiers drawing nearer. He could feel the tension building, the fear of what might happen next. They were safe for now, but Jack knew that the hardest part was still to come. They had made it this far, but would they be able to escape? Would they be able to fight back? When the soldiers finally found them, only time would tell. The darkness inside the cave was comforting. Jack and Zira sat close together, the cool air from the forest seeping in through the small cracks in the walls. Outside, the sounds of the soldiers searching the forest echoed through the night. Every now and then, Jack could hear their voices as they passed by, but they never came too close to the cave. The thick vines and the shadowy forest helped keep them hidden. For now, they were safe, but Jack knew that their safety wouldn't last forever. The soldiers would continue their search, and eventually, they would get closer. He could feel the tension building, but for the moment, he allowed himself to relax. Zira was still beside him, her presence a quiet comfort. They hadn't spoken much since they reached the cave. There was an unspoken understanding between them, a shared awareness of how fragile their situation was. Jack knew that Zira was still processing everything, still unsure of what would come next. She had always been the one who ran, the one who hid. Now, she was here, with him, facing a future that was uncertain. Are you okay? Jack finally asked. Breaking the silence, his voice was soft, careful. Zira didn't answer right away. She was sitting with her back against the cool stone of the cave, her eyes closed, her fingers lightly brushing the ground. It was as if she was grounding herself, finding some kind of peace in the chaos around them. When she spoke, her voice was low but steady. "I'm not sure," she admitted. "I've never been in a situation like this. I've always been alone. Always had to protect myself. But now, I'm not alone anymore." Jack turned to look at her. He could see the struggle in her eyes. Zira had been living with the weight of loneliness for so long that it was hard for her to let go of it. But now, with him by her side, she didn't have to carry that burden alone. "You don't have to be alone anymore," Jack said gently. "I'm here, Zira. I've got your back. Whatever happens, we face it together." Zira looked at him then, her dark eyes searching his face, as if looking for something. Jack met her gaze, his heart steady, his conviction strong. He had made his choice. He wasn't going anywhere, not without her. "I don't know how to trust someone like this," Zira said quietly, her voice full of vulnerability. "I've never let anyone in. Not like this." Jack reached out, placing a hand on her arm. His touch was gentle, but firm. "You don't have to trust me all at once," he said. "You can take your time, but I'm not going anywhere." For the first time since they had met, Zira allowed herself to lean into Jack's touch. Closing her eyes for a moment, she had spent so many years hiding behind her strength, her armor. But now, in the safety of the cave, with Jack beside her, she could feel the weight lifting. She didn't have to pretend to be strong all the time. She didn't have to carry the world on her shoulders anymore. Jack pulled his hand back after a moment, not wanting to make her feel uncomfortable. But Zira's eyes fluttered open, and she looked at him with something that resembled gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. Jack nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. "You don't have to thank me. We're in this together." They sat in silence again, listening to the distant sounds of the soldiers outside. The noise seemed far away now, like something from another world. But Jack knew it was only a matter of time before the soldiers would get closer. They couldn't stay hidden forever. But for now, he allowed himself to focus on the quiet moments with Zira. They were safe. And that was enough. After a long while, Zira stood up, stretching her arms above her head. "I'm not sure how long we can stay here," she said, her voice thoughtful. "But I do know one thing." "What's that?" Jack asked, looking up at her. "We can't keep running forever," Zira replied. "Eventually, we'll have to face them." Jack stood up as well, his feet heavy against the cool ground of the cave. He nodded. "You're right, but we don't have to face them alone. We've come this far together. We can keep going." Zira's eyes met his, and for the first time, there was a glimmer of hope in them. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew that with Jack by her side, she wasn't as alone as she had been before. They might not know how to win against the soldiers, but they didn't have to fight alone. They had each other. "I'll be with you," Jack said, his voice steady and calm. "No matter what happens." Zira nodded, her face softening. She didn't have to say the words out loud. She had never been good at trusting people, but she had learned to trust Jack. He had shown her, through his actions, that he would stand by her no matter what. And that was enough. The soldiers outside were still searching, still determined to find them, but for now, Jack and Zira had something the soldiers couldn't take away. They had each other. As the night wore on, they continued to sit together, finding comfort in the quiet and the fact that, for the first time in a long while, they weren't fighting alone. And as the stars filled the sky outside, Jack couldn't help but believe that, no matter how impossible things seemed, they would find a way forward. Together.